Everybody, what is going on? Welcome to another episode of the NIL Show. I am Adam Cook from Campus Inc. here with Sean Ellenby and Stephen Farrig. We are joined by Jaxon Curtis today. Jaxon Curtis works for VMG Sports Representation, big sports fan. He is a graduate of Utah State, Red Sox fan, Patriots fan, Celtics fan. So a large journey.
Tough day yesterday, huh?
Yeah, 100%.
A little tough.
100%. But we're excited to have you here and just learn a little bit about your perspective in the NIL space. You represent, obviously, a number of NFL players, which Stephen was just referring to some of the pain yesterday, and obviously diving into the NIL space. So before we kick it off, we have a question we ask everybody, Jaxon, in the NIL space. The slam dunk restaurant NIL deal for Jaxon Curtis. What's it going to be? What's your dream NIL restaurant deal today?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. It's great to be on the podcast with you guys. I would say slam dunk. So I grew up in Boston, but I also lived in Texas for some of my life. And I would say Torchy's Tacos, if you've ever been there. So that's what I would say would be the best food deal. Just because great
Torchy's
food.
Tacos, I like it.
Yeah,
so what's the order at Torchy's? What's the post? What's the commercial? What are you eating?
I mean, I would probably just go with the chicken tacos. Those are super good. They have great queso. Something like that would be awesome. So
nice. I've never had Torchy's before. I've heard great things. Have not spent much time in Texas myself, but I've heard about Torchy's before. So it sounds like a great pick. I like it, Jaxon. I like it.
Yeah. No, it's a great place.
Stephen, you had it?
I've not had Torchy's before. I'll have to put it on the list.
Team trip to Torchy's.
I like the hometown. I like the not national brand. Okay.
Yes.
It says a lot about it. Grassroots, very grassroots.
Yeah.
We'll judge it, but you could make a LinkedIn post on it, Jaxon. There you go, Jaxon. You're really active on LinkedIn, and it's good stuff. You've got like over 10,000 followers. You're constantly putting out just like fire, like knowledge bombs. Has that always been your strategy? Like, I follow you quite a bit. Tell me about that.
No, it kind of happened by accident. I typically only use LinkedIn for, hey, to connect with someone or, let's take a look at LinkedIn every once in a while. I didn't really think of it much as a bigger social media platform. Now, as we've kind of seen, it's become a lot larger. A lot more creators are getting on it. A lot more athletes are getting involved on LinkedIn. A lot more CEOs are posting on it. I mean, but for me, I started writing about it. It was actually, I'm not even a huge golf fan, but it happened to be from a golf event from the Masters. And Scotty Scheffler won the Masters. And I thought his story was super interesting. So I just researched a little bit about it. I saw that he had a conversation with his wife, how he was super nervous, but he ended up, coming out on top and winning. I dug in some more research and kind of gave my take on it, and the post kind of took off. So the post went viral, and I'm like, wow, a lot of good things have come from me just writing this post about an athlete. I'm going to keep doing it, not only because it helps the network, but it helps what I do currently. And it just kind of took off from there. So ever since that post, which I think got 6 million hits, which was like crazy to me.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I posted it and I almost deleted it, and then it got like 1 million hits in like a day. And I'm like, okay, this is something. There's something up with this. So
you were that close. You were that close to deleting it.
Yeah, I almost did. I thought it was kind of dumb because I never really posted anything on LinkedIn. So from there, I just kind of wrote more stories, and I thought stories really connected people together. People told me they really loved it, and so I just kept doing it, and then slowly started writing more about NIL and what I do. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. But I never once thought of myself as someone who would write on LinkedIn, but it's a good platform to learn from as well.
And when you write, you're a little edgy. I mean, you're controversial. You're not hiding behind anything. You might not be calling people out, but calling out fans on the NIL transfer portal alumni getting bothered. But then you tie it all back to kind of a bigger picture, a bigger story. And so if you don't follow Jaxon on LinkedIn, maybe you'll get a few more followers from this podcast for like our 2 listeners or whatever.
Yeah. Just not going to hit that 6 million mark yet.
Someday. No, but super cool. you got into on the NFL side first. Have you always been in the agency world? Tell me about that a little bit.
No, so I came from a kind of a non-traditional background. I feel like most people, when they want to work in sports, they want to work for a team first. And then from the team, they kind of work for an agency, or they just straight up intern at an agency right out of college. So I kind of took a different approach. So I did sales. I come from a background of sales, actually door-to-door sales, which is something kind of unheard of, but I did that for about 5 years, managed sales teams. And then from there, transitioned into sports because I had a connection with someone that started his own agency. And it was at Encore Sports. Now I'm at VMG, but that's kind of how it all came together from there.
What kind of sales were you doing door to door?
Door to door, I was actually selling pest control door to door.
Okay.
Huh.
Steven has a little background in that door to door.
Yeah, I did a ton of door to door sales for a painting company for 5 years as well. Mad respect if you've gone door to door and you lasted. What is that? This is interesting. We'll go down this rut for a sec because I love it. What did that teach you? Like what? First of all, it's like the worst job in the world, right? But it's freaking awesome, and there's a lot of adrenaline around it, right? What did you learn from going door to door?
I learned a lot of things, right? Like I was not I didn't really talk a lot, I wasn't very outspoken. I was kind of an introvert, so to speak. So it kind of taught me to come out of my shell, how to connect with others really quickly. You have about, 5 to 7 seconds to make an impression with someone on the door before it's either closing your face or they're yelling at you, or, they're just like, we're good. Right. So I think, taught you really well how to sell yourself, how to really just come across professional. A lot of the same things I do now when I'm talking with brands or with athletes. It's a lot of things I learned from that. And it also taught me how to manage people. But yeah, door to door, you learn a lot of good life skills, but in the end, it taught me how to just get to know people and, be uncomfortable. There's nothing comfortable about, going door to door, especially when there's like a dog chasing after you or the neighbor's coming over to talk to you or, whatever the case may be. I've dealt with so many different things, and then doing now and what I do now. And when I hear other people talk about their careers, I'm like, oh, you have no idea. This is just door to door is a different game when it comes to things. So
we had Mark on our Cuban on a call with all of our students, and he's hopped on from time to time, and he did a bunch of just chatting with them for 30 minutes. It was insane. But he talked about going door to door, and I think he was selling garbage bags or something like that.
Yeah.
Selling baseball cards. And he said, you only need to be right once, right? You only need to win once. No one remembers all the failures or all the no's or whatever that may be. And I give a lot of credit to those that have done it, because I think you learn resilience there, right? And you're persistent, right? Tastefully persistent. What are you going to say, Sean?
No, I was gonna say, I'm so interested. You said you have 5 to 7 seconds before they shut the door in your face. And to me, that just relates exactly to marketing with our athletes. Like we always say, when we're talking about videos, you have 3 seconds to capture somebody's interest in a video before they move on. And so there's some similar parallels there that I just found fascinating.
Yeah.
So Jaxon, obviously, incredible kind of journey getting to where you're at. NFL representation, on the marketing side. You're the first guest that we've had that's kind of been on this representation side for student athletes in the NIL space. So I'd love just to hear, like, man, what's the last year been like? I know it's been a wild ride from our side. It's been a wild ride from the school side, but from that representation and agency side, walk me through a little bit of the last year's perspective.
No, it's been absolutely crazy. It's been really cool to see, all these brands get involved and start working with athletes. Athletes being like, wow, now I can, make money off of, selling merch, kind of like how you guys help, or, with camps, or, working with brands through social media. There's so many different avenues. And so I would say it's been really cool to see somewhat of these student athletes kind of grow up and they just get right into the business world. Like that's been super fun to see. I'd also say it's been fun to see brands, get involved with athletes that kind of were interested before, but now that they see the impact that these players can have on them endorsing their brand, it's kind of fun. But yeah, it's been absolutely crazy. More schools are now building out NIL departments, right? Where they have people that go over their compliance. They have people help student athletes, do better networking and stuff like that. So I think it's just absolutely exploding. I think we're just scratching the surface. I think there's going to be a lot more that comes with NIL, and I think it's just going to be fun from here on out.
Mm-hmm. I guess, Jaxon, what are the biggest differences from representing professional athletes to now representing students? What have you? I have some opinions and I'll share them, but I'd love to hear from yours first.
You have opinions, Steven? No way.
No. But I would love to hear from your perspective. What are the real differences that you've learned firsthand, or the biggest difference between a college athlete and a professional athlete? Yeah.
I mean, this might sound a little crazy, but I don't really feel like there's a ton of differences. And the reason why I say that is because professional, they don't have to go through that many different levels. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say a student athlete has a deal they want to do with like a local restaurant. They got to get it approved by the school. They have to sign, the brand has to sign, they got to get it approved, and then it kind of rolls out. Professional athletes a little bit quicker, right? They don't really have to go through a school to get anything approved. Obviously you want to make sure the deal's authentic with them, they enjoy it. But professional athletes just have they have bigger reach. And so when it comes to professional athletes, I would say bigger brands are more involved with them. But kind of like we've seen with these other players that are on top programs in college, some of those players are getting those top brands as well. So I would definitely say there's a lot of similarities, but professionals have better reach. Brands are more likely to notice them, recognize them, but that's what I would say.
Okay. Adam, what are you going to say? I think this is an interesting convo.
Yeah. I had a maybe an interesting question, maybe a hard hitter. So, maybe the sentiment around representation of collegiate athletes is different than it is for professional athletes, right? Like functionally, I hear what you're saying for sure. Like, agreed, right? It's the same kind of idea. And we deal with this too. Just people have differing feelings about collegiate athletes earning money, collegiate athletes having representation, relationship with, athletics departments. What are your challenges? How do you have that conversation with parents, or, when you see stuff in the media and the news that's like, these agents, blah. Like what do you feel about that? How do you approach that?
I think it just depends on kind of how you're trying to approach it. I mean, you see all these news articles and all these things about, these athletes getting taken advantage of, or, kind of using the athletes to make them look better to the public eye, right? You see all those information. But I would just say it's just, if you come at it from an approach of like, I want to help you, look, I'm not trying to take advantage of you. And really just, you see a lot of these bigger agencies that may be twisting that, even some of the smaller agencies. But I would just say, come at it from a good angle. You want to be their friend. You don't want to, just come across as just their marketing guy or just the guy that kind of handles their endorsements. So really develop that good relationship with them. And just, make sure you're not just letting them get into whatever agreement comes their way. Because I've seen a lot of players, and a lot of players have come to me, and parents, kind of like you mentioned, they're just like, hey, like, is this a good deal? And I'm like, no, that's not a very good deal. And I don't have a ton of law experience. Like, I didn't go to law school, but I don't need that to like see that it's not a good deal. So I think
right.
It just comes down to like not accepting every deal that comes your way, but it's also, being cognizant of what you want and, not accepting the first offer on the table as well.
Jaxon, the amount of effort that you have to put into a college deal with a local taco shop, right, versus a professional athlete with a Taco Bell, right? Like, you still have to meet with both brands. You still have to talk to both the families. There's just a lot less money, say it for what it is, in college sports. Is that true? Like, there's just not a lot of skin in the game for the representation. Is that true or is that false? I don't know. Maybe
most local brands don't have a huge budget, right? I mean, at the same time, right, these bigger athletes can come in, and I've seen, these brands come together with a good amount of money for the player. But yeah, these local companies don't have a huge budget. And if they do, they're a little bit unsure because they've never done this before. A lot of time you work with the brand, they're like, well, I've never really worked with an athlete. I'm like, well, let's walk you through it and everything. So I think it just depends on what the players.
Have you had a deal? Have you had deals in NIL bigger than NFL deals?
I haven't. No, not personally. But I mean, I can almost guarantee you a lot of these top Alabama players and Georgia players that are getting bigger deals than some of these NFL players, just because it's the nature of the program where
Page
they're
backers
at.
with Gatorade.
Yeah. I would say overall college is smaller, but yeah, it's just kind of how it is.
And here's the thing, right? If you're a TikTok star and you're 11 years old, you're going to get bigger deals than a second string wide receiver, on the Colts. Let's just put it out there, right? Like influence is going to matter. And obviously Bryce Young's going to be fine. Paige is going to be fine, right? They're all going to get those big time deals. I think what's really interesting is like those 98% of athletes. What about them? How does representation work for them? Maybe specifically for you, like, do you have to say no to athletes that want representation because it's just not worth it for you?
Yes. No, all the time. I would say when it comes down to it, I like to be a resource, right? Like some people might consider me like an expert, but I'm still learning. Like NIL is still so brand new. And I definitely think with the more things that come out, it's going to be a different game in the next 4 to 5 years. And now that we're seeing all of these other brands get involved, but I would just say, come at it from a point of, hey, I can be a resource. It may not be the best fit right now for us to represent you on the NIL side, but I definitely think there's other ways that these smaller athletes can make money, kind of like merchandise, but there's also other things that they can do where, they may not even be big enough for a brand deal in their, local area, but, they can still, run camps or however the case may be, or even make money off, like, let's say they're a really good student. They can make money off tutoring. They couldn't do that before, or they can do a YouTube channel, right? They couldn't do that before either, right? So I think NIL is only looked upon as just like brand deals, and that's a big part of it. But there's a lot of other ways where those athletes that don't have a lot of influence can still make money.
Gotcha. So like when an athlete, you get approached by an athlete, are you looking for a certain dollar amount to engage with them? Like if I can't close $100K a year with them, it's not going to be worth my time. How do you, cause you work for a for-profit company, you got food to put on the table and stuff too. Is it a dollar amount? What is it for you? Cause I think this is the first time we've ever talked about this, Adam and Sean. So I'm genuinely really curious.
Yeah. I mean, again, to kind of going back to the question at the beginning is like, the athletes are different, or the athletes are similar, right? But like the ecosystem is totally different. So,
right.
Yeah. What does that look like?
Yeah, no, I would say, I don't like to say, hey, I mean, in my mind, they have to have a certain dollar amount for it to make sense. I mean, obviously, we're not going to sign the player if it doesn't make sense. But I would just say they got to be a big part of their team. We only represent football clients at VMG, so NFL and college football. So, I mean, if they're not a huge part of the team, it doesn't make a ton of sense. But with that being said, there are some players that aren't, starters that have great influence on social media that can still make great money with NIL. So, I mean, there are some exceptions. So I can't just say, hey, if you're not a starter, it doesn't make sense, because there's definitely players that do make sense. But I would just say, a big part of the team. I would just say, takes NIL seriously. There's a lot of players that kind of just are kind of hands off, and that's okay. But then there's some players that kind of expect you to do everything, but there's still a little bit of effort that needs to be involved. I would just say hard workers, an athlete that, has some potential for, professional. That's always great as well, because, when they are in the NFL, they are going to a bigger fan base. So I would just say there's a lot of different factors, but those are some of the main ones.
Jaxon, what are the most successful athletes doing? So out of those cream of the crop athletes, the top athletes on each team, what are the most successful athletes doing to make themselves the most attractive to possible sponsorships or whatever it might be?
I would say some of the top athletes that are doing great when it comes to NIL are always creating or very active on social media. The athletes that are forgetting to post after 6 months aren't really going to reel in a lot of sponsorships, because the first thing the brand's going to tell me is, hey, why isn't he posted?
Yeah.
So I think, pretty active on social media. They don't need to do it every day, but fairly active on the platform. And then I would say also like really good in their sport. Like that obviously helps. They're more well known to other people in that space.
When you talk about athletes posting, it's so funny. I always see athletes that I never really see often. They'll pop up on my feed after a big win. So they might post amazing win, Terp Nation, whatever it might be. I relate everything to Maryland. Sorry.
You guys had a big win this last weekend.
But we did have a big win. Thank you.
Very big
but
win.
they'll relate things back to the win. And if I could say something to athletes, it would just be capitalize on those emotional moments. So tweet after a big win. Thank your fans, because the fans are emotional at that time and they want to support you and they want to have your back, and your engagement numbers will skyrocket. So I always think that's a really effective way for athletes to help kind of get their wheels spinning. What's
your again, you guys represent football athletes. I was looking at your client list. You got LSU, Pitt. What's your relationship with the institutions like? Right, because it's again, when you're at the professional level, you are their advocate, their the person that's in the seat for them, probably in conversations with the franchise, every day, multiple times a week, because that franchise exists for the success of this, small group of athletes or large group of athletes, football players. But athletics departments at the collegiate level are very different, right? Like they have a lot of competing priorities, a lot of competing sports, a lot of federal legislation and, compliance issues to deal with. They're not just looking at like, hey, we need to keep our franchise tag athletes happy, right? So what's the relationship with the institutions like for you guys?
Yeah, no, VMG as a whole, we have a good relationships with a lot of the, universities that we work with. I mean, that's all part of it, right? I mean, when you have to get a deal approved or, work with the player, you have to get that through compliance. And it's funny, a lot of universities are different in how they do things, but that's what makes NIL kind of fun. But also it's just like not a ton of uniformity because every, college and university kind of has their way of handling different processes. And with new technology coming out, like some people, have open doors, some people have, all of these other ones like influencer and that they use. So I think it's just kind of dependent, but in a sense, these universities, they have the governing power with these compliance and with the NIL deals. So
how do you feel schools, like what's their general stigma to agents or marketing agents? Do you feel like they're all about it? Do you feel like they're resentful? Do you feel like they're accepting of it? Because they do have these platforms, right? But then there's also some sort of need for representation and the whole collectives thing. Like, what's the taste that you get when you're talking to a lot of them?
Yeah, no, I never felt like it was they don't like agents, they don't like marketing groups or, sports agencies. I haven't really felt like that whenever I'm talking with them, but I would say for the most part, been very helpful. They want to, make sure their athletes are taken care of, in a way. So if you can, keep their athletes happy and help them on that side, it's a great relationship. I've never felt like it's in that way, but I mean, some brands, they're not huge fans of agents, but that's just the nature of the game. So
I'll give you guys a little insight. Coming from a college athletic department, typically athletic departments like to have control of things. And if an agent is coming in, that's a little bit less control that they have over their player. Sometimes good thing, sometimes bad thing, whatever it might be. But as it pertains to NIL, generally, most schools don't have much control on NIL. It's just so rapidly evolving. They don't have the systems in place to really help their athletes. And so hopefully they're looking at agents as, oh, no, they are there to help our athletes succeed financially, help them get to the next level. You hope at least that's the attitude that they have.
Jaxon, are most NIL deals so and the reason I say this is we work with a lot of agencies around the country and some of the biggest in sports. And a lot of it is our approach is fundamentally different than a lot of other companies in the way that we make our athletes money. That's a rev share, it's on per unit sold. They've got to do a little bit of work to actually make their money. And I think we had an agency tell Adam, I've never seen something like this. You're crazy if you think this is going to work. And well, it's working.
It worked.
Have you seen a lot of deals be like rev share like where, in our case, an athlete's going to make $8 to $10 a t-shirt, all the way up to $15 per jersey. Have you seen other deals, even in the NFL, crafted the same way?
Yeah, no, rev share it's a common way to do a partnership. I mean, there's definitely ways where an athlete can, their memorabilia or through, merchandise or whatever the case may be. That's a way for the athletes to, make some extra money. So I've definitely seen it been an effective part when it comes down to things, but I know how some brands want to work and they want to set limits, but I definitely think there's great ways to benefit off of the rev share.
How open? First of all, let me say, very grateful for you saying that. I'm gonna have to call this guy back and see, there are deals that are done this way at the pro level. But how open? I don't know. This stuff is so new, right? Like you said, everybody's figuring it out. Part of that makes it really exciting. Excuse me. And I know that every agency is a little bit different, but how open are you guys to seeing, I don't know, deals structured in a different way, kind of coming up with some of those creative solutions? Because at the end of the day, agency and representation is based on, standards of practice and how things go legally and precedents that are set, but there is no precedent for NIL, right? So do you find in the industry people are really excited or like trying to kind of shoehorn stuff into the college space? What's the approach? Like, what's the mentality there?
I think it just kind of comes down to, protecting the athlete's time as well as, helping them off the field, just because there's so many things that they could do, right? But you also got to make sure they're doing really well on the field, because if they do want to play at a professional level, you don't want NIL to be a distraction. So I would say there's definitely ways to get creative when it comes to different partnerships and how you want to compensate athletes. I think coming up with a fair compensation model is kind of dependent on what the agency and the brand kind of come up with together. But I would just say, like I said, it comes down to, having the best interests in mind for these players, not locking them into something super long-term. It has to make sense. And like I said, you can get creative with it. It just has to make sense for both sides.
Jaxon, you're a Utah State guy. We have Steven Ashworth signed with us, aka Splashworth.
Mr.
I don't know if you've talked to him much, but he's I don't know what he's going to end up doing, but he's a stud. We always joke with him, we're going to end up working for him someday. He's just really smart. He's got it together. And then your star basketball player last year was Justin Bean. I think he had a deal with like a local taco shop. He was selling bean burritos. There's just something, if you have a good name, it really helps in the NIL space. Give me a good, Jaxon, give me a good deal that you've seen. It could be one of your guys or just in general. What's your favorite deal you've seen?
Oh, there's been a lot, and it's fine. I know both Ashworth and Bean, so they're great guys. Happy for Bean that he's now playing on a professional level, so it's cool to see a lot of these Utah State guys, did good after college. But I would say when it comes down to favorite, I mean, there's a lot of them. One of my favorite, I mean, it's a lot of people's favorites, but it's the DeColdis deal with the SOS Heating and Cooling,
of course,
University of Illinois. I mean, that's just. It
was almost like he was born. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like he was born to sell air conditioning.
Give me some context on that. I don't know. Sean, tell me about this. What is it? What happened?
I don't know. What's his last name? Do you know, Jaxon?
Is it DeColdis Crawford?
DeColdis. It doesn't even matter what his last name is. His first name is DeColdis.
It's DeColdis Crawford. And he actually went viral when he was in high school or junior high because of his name. He was, he's a baller. He's a football player. Everybody was really excited. And then all of a sudden he turned out to be actually super good. And so now he's in college. NIL comes about, and a local air conditioning HVAC company comes to him and says, awesome. "Hey, let's sign a deal." I love it.
National news.
I think the crazy thing about that. I saw. Go ahead, Jaxon. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the crazy thing about that is he's injured. He's not even playing, and so a lot of people think he's like catching 100 receiving yards per game right now. But that's the beauty of NIL, that you can still be a great athlete, not be playing, and benefit from a deal like that.
Awesome.
There was this like bedding company for like really soft mattresses, I think, and they went to all the bench warmers and they did an NIL deal with all of them, and they were all the most well rested. And that was part of the deal. It was freaking hilarious.
That's a good one.
I kind of think like, so I posed the question up front is like, is NIL different in professional sports? And while I think there's a lot of similarities, I think the biggest difference that I see is that in professional sports, athletes are paid to play, meaning they have a professional contract. They're collectively bargained for. This is their career. And in college sports, they're amateurs. They're not paid to play. And so their NIL deals are maybe the only source of income that they have. And a lot of this is what Adam taught me early on that we've been preaching. I guess from after I say that, how much more rewarding or different is it to give a college athlete an NIL deal versus a professional athlete a deal? Like, what's that excitement level for them? Is there like different, talk to me about the emotional level that they deal with.
Yeah, I would definitely say for college. Yeah, I would definitely say for college, they're a little more excited. I mean, they don't have a lot of money coming in, right? Unless they're a super top athlete at one of those top programs where they're, getting a ton of money. A lot of times when they get an NIL deal, you're right. That's like some of the only money they see unless they have a part-time job but for the most part, they're just kind of focused on their sport. So the excitement level is much higher. It can definitely change lives when it comes to student athletes. I think what was I reading the other day? There was a Ohio State University lacrosse player that, is making great money through his YouTube channel, so it's just cool. Like, you don't need to be even in, obviously I'm biased when I represent football clients, but you can still make great money on the NIL side if you're not playing one of the top sports. But, also I would say too, on the professional level, like, when I was at Encore Sports, it was just college. Now with VMG, I help some NFL, but I haven't really seen a ton quite yet. But from what I understand, a lot of NFL players, a lot of times they get cut, they're free agents. Like, it's not always, super easy for them to get brand partnerships. So I can definitely see how on the NFL side, unless you're on the starting roster, unless you're like a Tom Brady or one of these top guys, you don't always get all these brand sponsorship deals. So
interesting.
Yeah, competition is thick. It is.
Yeah, you can.
Is there any reason why
just get cut the next day?
Yeah. Is there any reason why you guys are only in football? Like, I look at basketball and there's 15 guys on a roster and probably get more TV time versus football. You've got a massive roster. Is there any reason why you guys are just in football?
I think it's a lot of our experience comes from it. Like, VMG has been around for a while, so I would just say a lot of the people that kind of at the helm of VMG have just kind of stayed in football. I don't know if that's going to expand into other sports, but for right now, we kind of like to position ourselves as just football, just given the experience and stuff that we have involved in it.
So one of the things that we always try to do here on the show and in these conversations is, we really appreciate just the perspective and the learnings, but we try to give, some learnings to our listeners as well. And that's, athletics departments. We've talked about that a little bit. We've talked about the student athletes and kind of best practices. How about like businesses? What in your experiences, what's the relationship like with other businesses? How is it? There's competing priorities again. You guys are wanting the best for the athlete, pushing the envelope to get them, the best, and other people have certain budget constraints and constrictions and expectations. What's kind of the best practices of working with an agency if you're a small or a local business who wants to dive into the NIL space and activations and sponsorships?
I would just say kind of finding out what their goals are going to be when they work with an athlete. I talk to some brands like, I have really no idea. Never done this before, and that's okay. Let's just come together with a solution that can, benefit you and also help the player, because, working as an agent at an agency, you don't want to undervalue the player, and there's definitely times when, a brand might come back, like a local brand might come and say, hey, this is what we have for a budget. Then you have to go back and be like, well, could we do something like this? So I think it just comes down to, finding out what they value, what they want to get out of it, and sometimes it's not a good fit, and that's okay. I don't say yes to every single brand deal, and there's some times where I have to turn down, but that's okay, because I would much rather have 4 or 5 great deals for some of the athletes than 30 okay deals for some of these players. And, you definitely see all the
Right.
players are like, I just want more and more. I'm like, well, you don't want to stretch yourself too thin because, let's say a brand does come to you and you're already with a similar like company. You don't have any competing interests. So I would just say be cognizant of that and, come together with a good solution. But I mean, social media is a big thing from what I've seen with local brands. I mean, what local brand wouldn't want, an athlete that's kind of well known in that area to sponsor them through social media? It's a great starting point.
Jaxon, Utah State, where's that located? Logan, right?
Yes.
If I'm a college athlete, do I have better NIL opportunities in Los Angeles or Logan, Utah?
And what college is the student athlete going to in Los Angeles?
Well, the reason I'm asking, Logan, Utah, maybe there's not as many businesses as there might be in LA, but there's also not as much competition. If a player was in LA, maybe he's going up against a bunch of pro teams, a bunch of other college teams. Utah State, you're the only show in town. Maybe you have a better opportunity. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. There's a ton of colleges, ton of brands in LA. I mean, I would just say, I don't know. I personally think I'm biased though. Like I went to Utah State. I still live in Logan. I would say Utah State. I would say Utah State. But I mean, that's what we've seen. I mean, when I worked at Encore, that's the deal came out of Logan for Justin Bean. It was taco time in Logan. So I don't know if, he lived in a different area, if that would have worked is what I'm trying to say. So I mean, I think when it comes down to it, if you are a big time player in that, a smaller kind of city, I can definitely see some bigger benefits there, but there's also a ton of brands in Los Angeles, so I can see both sides.
What's next for you guys? Like I always like Adam actually says this. I should just say that anything I says, Adam probably taught me about NIL. Last year was year 0. This is year 1. What's next for you all? What's this year look like?
Well, I mean, football season's in full swing, so just continue to help a lot of our players maximize their, earnings off the field when it comes to these marketing deals. I mean, VMG, we're a group of marketers, lawyers, and guys that are certified. And so I handle a lot of the marketing endorsements, but there's also a team around us, and we kind of go by the home team. That's kind of our mantra. So we do a good job working together. And I would just say continuing to build off of that. I would say right now, just because college football is so fresh, focusing on that, but also too, you got to look ahead to, next year and the NFL draft coming up. So it's exciting stuff, especially the fall, springtime. Summer's kind of, not as hectic, but right now is a great time.
It never stops. I love how you say not as hectic. It's not calm. It's just not as hectic.
Right.
But
Exactly.
no, I love it. Jaxon Curtis, LinkedIn poster extraordinaire, representative of VMG Sports. I really appreciate the time, the perspective, the conversation. As always, wonderful to chat with you. Really grateful for the conversation. This has been another episode of the NIL Show. I am Adam Cook, signing off here for Sean Ellenby and Stephen Farrick. We will see you guys next time.